Welcome to the Josh Button Podcast, where we discuss health, wellness, and outliers from society. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Josh Button Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Brian Sanders, podcaster. He has a Peak Human podcast, Food Lies on Instagram, CEO and creator owner of Eat Nose to Tail and the Sapien Center in Austin. Brother, you got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I love
it. We'll get to all of it, but first and foremost, what has resonated with me so strongly is why you got into this and how you found Food Lies in the first place, and our stories in that way parallel. So please introduce us. Tell us a little bit about how you got into that and how that came about.
Yeah, a bit of a sad story. I'm about to turn 42 in 8 days, and this started when I was 30. I lost both my parents. Wake up call. I was 30. I was in way worse shape. Like, I looked terrible. I felt terrible. I was 30 and just becoming like the average dad bod, American that had all these little problems, was on little over the counter medications, gaining weight and all this. So yeah, losing my parents woke me up. They did all the right things. That was kind of the problem and why I got so into this nutrition world and trying to change things and putting out a docuseries, which is called Food Lies, which is why my Instagram is Food Lies. But they did the right things. They followed the recommendations. We ate the food pyramid. We were the family that the government loved. We were the family that did what they said and ate the food pyramid and followed the rules and paid the taxes. And it was just like the typical life. But we became the typical American, which, yeah, is not good. We weren't going out to eat much at all. My family was always trying to save money and just make our own food and use low-fat products, avoid red meat, avoid fat, whole grains, all of it. And it just barely works until it doesn't. That's kind of the thing. It's kind of a hard thing, this nutrition world, is this stuff. It's not like you eat one donut and you just die. Right? It's a long, slow process, and no one really knows how sick they are until it's too late. Oh, yeah. I mean, we could get into all these different topics here, but that's my main reason for doing all this. I made simple changes to my diet when I was 30, 12 years ago, and my whole life changed. It was so easy. I felt great. I lost 20 pounds of fat. All my problems went away. My body just works. It's kind of just magical. You get like a new car and it just works. And for years, if you get a really good car, you just don't worry about it. Right. And it's totally different than you have the old car that's breaking down every week, or you're always dealing with problems. Oh, you can't really go too fast because it's going to start to like get clunky. All these things. Most people are doing that with their bodies. They're just driving around in the clunker and it just barely works. And, they're holding on and they're going to the shop every couple months. And the dream is just, you have the brand new Tesla, whatever, that just works and it's just great. And you just go. And that's what I have now. It's amazing.
That's exactly how I found you. Is unfortunately, I fell into the wrong fixes for the situation that I was encountering with some poor health, and I went vegan, and I adopted the vegan lifestyle, and I thought I was doing the right thing, both for the world and for my own personal health, as many of the people around me were vegan and they swore by it. So as soon as I started noticing my health deteriorated and I started branching out and looking for other answers, I actually found you, and I found Saladino and a few other influencers at the time, pre-influencer status, I would even say, that were giving me another message, that were saying, maybe we got this wrong. This isn't what we're being told by mainstream. So I'm really grateful I found you at that time. And I'm grateful for your influence that was actually good for me, because I had the same results. I went back to red meat, and I even did the carnivore, strict carnivore for a while. And you were also an example of somebody who didn't go completely overboard with carnivore ideology, only eating meat. And you introduced some things to my diet that I was like, oh, I don't have to be such a zealot, and I do feel good. So thank you for that. And, in that time period, I think you probably were getting some backlash from the mainstream. You were getting some critics that were saying, what are you doing here, and questioning you. How was that for you? How was that journey? And when you started to come to these answers and putting this message out, did you face backlash?
Yeah. Well, there always is. There's all kinds of stuff. The vegans definitely didn't like me. There's the mainstream dietitians are the worst. They're kind of like the puppets for the food industry, big food and big pharma. So a lot the mainstream doctors, nutritionists, dietitians. Luckily, the food company, I mean, they don't bother me. They're too big. You know, there's these some of these forces are so big that they're not gonna just bother random people on Instagram. But yeah, that the doctors and nutritionists, they kind of get indoctrinated into the system and they're taught these narratives. And it makes sense because their whole schooling is about pills and procedures for the doctors. And for the nutritionists, it's all about towing the line of whole grains. It's the same old narrative. They have the same textbooks that are funded by the same people. Yeah, that's all they learn. And even if there's new information, they're not going to start talking about it because it goes against the incentives of their industry. Their whole industry is around these narratives that the food industry has been making money off for decades. And I actually learned this the hard way, like, really learned this acutely because I started nose to tail and we did regenerative meat, right? It's the best quality meat. I thought I have an audience that loves good quality meat. It's going to be fine. I'm going to make money. It's going to support me. Let's do it. Over 4 years, I end up losing money, negative over 4 years because there's no profit margin on meat and there's no profit margin on strawberries or lettuce or any whole food. Absolutely no profit margin. People will say, oh, well, what about Tyson chicken? And I say, yes, maybe if you're selling millions and billions of dollars or millions of pounds of it, you can. But really, they're not making money on chicken. Chicken is $2 a pound. You can get, right? They're making money on chicken nuggets. So they're adding flour and MSG and preservatives and seed oils and breadcrumbs. And then they're selling in the freezer section for $10. And there's probably, a dollar's worth of chicken in there. So that's what they're making money on processed foods, really, as well. So no one's making money on whole foods. I'm telling you, there's it's just no profit margin. It just doesn't work. The math doesn't work out. So that means all of these processed food companies are controlling the narrative. They have money to do fake studies. If you look at it's like, oh, pasta is so healthy. It's sponsored by Barilla. It's like, who funded this study? They're doing all the lobbying to keep all these cheap processed ingredients subsidized and cheap, and they control the marketing and all the narratives. From the day I was born, it was just all cereal commercials and Frosted Flakes and Lucky Charms. All the money, all the profits there, they're controlling the narrative. So this is why people are just like, oh, this is some conspiracy. No, it's not. The dietitians, nutrition programs, they're all just run by this. If you go back far enough, it's who's funding this, who set up this system, and it's all the money in the processed foods, or even the government. The government is incentivized to just push this. It's like, we just need to feed the masses. If you go back, this is in the Food Lies series we're making, that the food pyramid used to be more whole foods back when it was first presented. And there was actually just fresh meat and fruits and vegetables and dairy. And it was just, this is it. And then they're like, wait a second, we have the food stamps program or whatever it was called back then. How are we going to pay for this? We can't be giving away all these fresh fruits and vegetables and meat and dairy. That's so expensive. So they kind of switched it around and added, 6 to 11 servings of grains because we have millions of acres of grains and it's super cheap. And back then, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but they're just like, a calorie is a calorie. If we can serve people processed grains for, that's 500 calories, just who cares? They're getting their calories, right? So that paradigm is just wrong. And yeah, I've learned this is another thing I get pushback from actually is all the nutrition influencers out there, the bodybuilding bros, all the guys out there talking about, oh, it's just about calories. They still don't even understand the difference between nutrients and energy and, like good calories, bad calories. Like there's a whole rabbit hole there. So yeah, that's kind of why the nutrition recommendations are bad. The doctors are getting money to do pills and procedures, not to do root cause health. And it's not really conspiracy. It's just business. It's just how the world works. People make money. There's, you know, people in control that are making billions of dollars and they're not going to change.
Yeah, a great deal of those advertisements for Cheerios and whatever it was when we were kids have been replaced with pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
It's literally I don't watch TV, but when I go to my parents and we're eating dinner and something's on it, I can't help but notice, like, it is literally 80% pharmaceutical commercials. It's mind-boggling.
It's it's a good business model, right? Like, they're making a lot of money. I learned about advertising too. If you hear a million AG1 ads on podcasts, that means they're making millions and maybe billions of dollars. Well, their worth or valuation is in the billions. You don't do an ad if you're not making money, right? So these pharmaceutical companies are not doing ads for fun. They are having a high ROI on each one of those. So yes.
So we're talking about the food pyramid and how it's differentiated. But now, if you could create the food pyramid, just to clear confusion for people, what is your current food pyramid and your advice to people
Mm,
going forward?
I like that question. Yeah, it's definitely whole food based. If I were to make it, it would be 98% whole foods, right? And stick to that as best you can. I have some stuff once in a while, but hopefully it's better for you stuff. Like sometimes people make ice cream. I get some raw milk ice cream, stuff like that. But so if you're whole foods, that's number one. Number two is I would go more towards animal based. That's just where your nutrients are. Animal foods are more bioavailable and complete with their protein and nutrients. The protein is just better quality. It's better used by your body. It's more absorbable. They do all the studies. It's just basic science. I don't know why this isn't just more well known. Like, why is there even an argument? This is settled science. They have the scoring systems, the DIAS and the PDCAS scoring systems that rate the amino acid score and how absorbable it is in your body. And all the animal foods are the top. And that's it. It's just well known. It's done. But I don't know. I guess there's money to be made elsewhere. They got to blur the message. And same thing with the nutrients. All the fat soluble vitamins, A, D, and K, these are all just way more abundant and better absorbed in animal foods. Mm. There's some, of course, you get vitamin C from plants. You can get some more magnesium in plant foods, and they're fine. Yeah, I eat plant foods all the time. So the biggest message is animal foods are where you're getting the foundation of your nutrition. And this is how it's always been throughout history until the last, I don't know, 70 years when we went crazy. And so after that, I guess, a lot of it's up to you. The more I do this stuff and speak and do podcasts and make my series, the less dogmatic I get. Where, like, if you zoom out, you just need to do these simple things and you can pick your diet like within this framework. Like if you're eating whole foods and you're going towards animal foods and you're avoiding the worst three ingredients are the flour, sugar, flour, oil, right? That's the refined grains, added sugars, seed oils. If you're avoiding those three things, you're going to be better than most of the population. And everyone has their preferences of, what they like to eat. So I'm not going to, change their diet anyway. Right? Like it's not like someone's going to all of a sudden, I mean, you did, I guess, but many people
Multiple
won't.
times.
Yeah, many people won't completely overhaul their diet. So another thing I tell people is whatever you're eating, let's double the protein and get rid of the most processed parts. So if you're eating a certain way and this is what you like to do, and that's your culture and that's what maybe your family likes to eat, okay, you can still do it within that framework. So let's cut out if you're eating okay with the tons of pasta and grains and breads or desserts. Okay, let's just cut those down and add more meat, fish, and eggs. If you do that, you've just completely changed your diet. You've raised the nutrient density of your diet so much and it can completely change your life just by changing the ratio of the foods that you're already eating. And this is what humans kind of naturally have done throughout history until modern day. Modern day processed foods and culture kind of shifted this ratio. So this is again just what I learned over the years. It's like, how come there's healthy people all over the world or throughout history, different times in history, they were eating completely different diets. And it all made sense once I really learned about this concept of nutrient density, which is kind of a nutrient to energy ratio, which is what I alluded to earlier about there's nutrient calories and energy calories. And these are completely different. You actually want more nutrient calories and less energy calories. And all modern foods are the opposite. They're all high energy, low nutrient. And nutrient means protein, vitamins, and minerals, and energy means fats and carbs. Not saying that fat is bad, right? It's not saying carbs are bad. It's like what type of fat and carbs you're eating, and then what ratio are you eating them in. I grew up in Hawaii and we would eat plate lunches. They're called plate lunches. They come in a styrofoam box mainly. And they would have like 3 scoops of rice, a little portion of meat, and macaroni salad, which is just mayonnaise and elbow noodles, right? Or whatever it's called, macaroni. And yeah, a lot of people are overweight in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of people are fit too. Uh, because they're actually, active and taking care of their body and purposeful with how they eat. So I can still go home to Hawaii and eat a plate lunch. I will just order it completely differently. So instead of 3 scoops of rice, I can get 1 scoop of rice. I can get double meat, like give me double chicken, double beef, and then I'll get kimchi instead of macaroni salad, right? That is a very good meal. That is great, right? That is in the correct ratios. It fills you up, it gives you protein. It doesn't have just a ton of empty calories in it, really. So, yeah, is that making sense?
Absolutely. I'm from a Southern family. And as you know, in the South, we like big portions. And unfortunately, most of the time they would have the portions incorrectly as well. A huge side of mac and cheese, a huge side of potatoes and gravy and all these other things. But they do have meat and they do have things that we would shift, and I have shifted in my own mom's house, my dad's house, and I would have more protein and cut down on the other, you know, things, at least to what should be calculated and at least thought as balanced. And I went carnivore for a long time and reintroduced things. And as I came back here, I realized my mom was really getting into sourdough.
Mhm.
And sourdough, I wasn't having any breads. I wasn't having any pastas. I still don't do pastas and most of the other thing, but the sourdough I did reintroduce. And I realized, like, when I'm having this in a ratio where I'm having my meat and my eggs, and those are really just consistent and fast portion of my diet, then I feel great. I do feel great. And the sourdough is good energy. I train jujitsu every day. Like you said, in Hawaii, there's a lot of people that are fit. Yeah, they're swimming, they're hiking, they're doing all of these things that kind of demand a little bit more energy. So it is a lot different when somebody's sitting on a couch in Alabama in the air conditioning and consuming something, even in moderation, compared to somebody who's living a healthy, active lifestyle.
Absolutely. And yes, the sourdough, that's a great kind of story there. So, sourdough is a traditional way of making bread, and it has very few ingredients, right? It's really just like hopefully a good source of
Very
flour,
good. Yeah.
right? Some water, some yeast, and maybe a little salt, but that's fermented. And that, like, that the process kind of breaks down some of the carbohydrates, and it just, this is the way we've done it. And it's a healthy version, there's no additives, and yeah, I kinda went full circle where I'm like, "Oh, I can have some sourdough in my life." Maybe it was good to get rid of it for a while and get rid of bread, right, and have a reset, like, yes, I did have sort of animal-based reset. I did try carnivore a little bit for a couple weeks just to see if I felt different. I actually didn't. I felt just the same because I was already eating 85% animal foods anyway, and pickles and just a few other things, so it's like going carnivore didn't really change anything. Which is good to know because I don't think people need to go full carnivore unless they are trying to heal a certain condition, right? There's many cases, Crohn's or like different stuff, GI stuff, autoimmune. There's many reasons to do it, or just to have a reset, right? And just kind of completely shake up your system, lose a lot of weight, and then you can get back to eating foods that you enjoy, but you can be getting those healthy versions of those foods, like sourdough. So the bigger story with sourdough is the difference between processed or modern processing and traditional processing. So sourdough is traditionally processed. Kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles, these are traditionally processed. Completely different than modern processing. Usually traditional processing increases nutrient density. Modern processing, it's by definition decreases nutrient density. It's really just a bunch of sugar, flour, oil that they add into foods. So yeah, you talk about food pyramid. I have an idea that to change how we think about food and put them into 3 categories. So right now the food pyramid is just bogus in many ways. It's also just people don't understand food anyway. They're just like, what is it? And then they don't even understand processed food. Like they're like, okay, so sausage is bad. I'm like, no, sausage is not bad. They're not adding sugar, flour, and oil into sausage. I mean, some sausages could be bad, right? There could be
Nitrate packed or whatever, right?
Yeah, there could be some terrible sausage out there, but usually it should be just ground up meat in a casing. And maybe it has some celery salt, or, they have some sort of natural preservative type things. So that is not decreasing your nutrient density. Perfectly good. Ground beef is, some people, oh, that's processed. No, that is just meat. That is all good. Butter. Yeah, I mean, it's processed, but it's still fine. I mean, it's not like I'm just pouring butter on everything, but it it is a traditionally processed food. Modern processing would be everything else, the chicken nuggets, the Cheez-Its, the cereals, everyone knows what I'm talking about, all the way down to candy and soda, the worst of the worst. So, if we simply think of foods, also there's a NOVA classification system that other countries use, and there's kind of like 4 different levels. That's even confusing because they're putting all these different things in different categories. It's not helping people. What helps people is there's whole foods, which everyone knows, and there's single ingredient foods without an ingredient list. There's traditionally processed foods that are something that would be around 100 years ago or 10,000 years ago. And those are, yeah, they could have a couple ingredients and they could be in a package, but they're still perfectly healthy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a sauerkraut. Like, right? I get fresh sauerkraut. It's absolutely amazing for you. That you could eat unlimited sauerkraut and you would not have a problem. It would help you, actually. And so those are the traditionally processed foods. And then there's modern processed foods, which is everything else, right? If you just kind of think of it, those, I think you have a better understanding of food. That would be my food pyramid kind of guidelines. So I'm kind of talking about eat more animal based and just know the difference between whole foods, traditionally processed foods, and modern processed foods.
You touched on something a few minutes ago about settled science. And like, as you mentioned, that this ancestral way of processing foods, this ancestral eating, that is settled science. And it's almost as if it's been kind of taken away from the forefront of our view, or buried even. And the actual food pyramid that would be based upon settled science was kind of buried. And we were given these alternatives and taught these things that just we know now are completely untrue. Obviously, if you're not in tune with the fact that seed oils and the processing of seed oils is probably one of the worst things, and all of these other things that are coming out of cardboard boxes from the center of grocery stores. I mean, there is a lot of people that are completely unaware that this is, unnatural to eat, that this is glorified poison. Let's just say what it is. I mean, to a certain extent, it really is poison. So, what do you attribute this to? Why did this shift happen? Is it just big business? Is it just profit? Or is there some kind of malevolence?
I always think there is something going on in the background that's really shifting things in a direction that's not beneficial for individual health. So I think about this stuff a lot. So I don't want, I'm not conspiracy. I'm a very realist when it comes to like conspiracy stuff, because some of it's really bogus and some of it's totally true. Right? I hate that they're just like, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. Like, no, there's some very real stuff out there, and there's some stupid stuff, I'm sure. Right? And that's actually purposely thrown in to make us look bad. Now, if someone's talking about, I don't know, lizard people, the government's run by lizard people. Now, anyone who's talking about true conspiracies is lumped in with the lizard people, right? So I do think there's bigger things at play. And what I learned that is kind of a law of nature is that what's good for the people at the top is almost always not good for the individual. Okay, this is just a law of nature. If you're a governing body, if you're a huge food manufacturer, if you are just any government around the world throughout history, back to ancient Egypt, what was good for the pharaoh is not good for the peasant. What's good for the pharaoh is a bunch of cheap grains that feed them and can be stored easily, and that's basically how these pharaohs like got all their power and wealth, is kind of through controlling the food system and these grains and figuring out how to store them and harvest them. And what's good for them is to keep this power and just have people fed. And it's kind of opposite of what's good for the individual, of like, well, they're getting calories, but they're nutritionless calories and they're sick. And yes, there's a lot of chronic disease. If you're just eating a just empty nutrition grain based diet, you're going to die soon, early. You're going to get chronic diseases, deficiencies, all this stuff. So it's the same thing in the modern world. It's yeah, what the big pharma example and all the pharmaceutical ads. It's like what's good for them is to sell a whole bunch of pharmaceutical products. What's good for the individual is to take control of their own health and not need pharmaceutical products. Right? So it's really like this law of nature if you think about it. Like but it's hard though cuz not everyone is going to take control of their life and become independent and sovereign and all that stuff. Right? So I get it. Sometimes the governing bodies, they just have to have blanket messaging because they're like, what do? We have all these people out there. We're like, oh, eat the food pyramid, take your shots, do your thing, right? Just whatever. They're just gonna just give these blanket recommendations. Uh, What usually is good for the individual is completely different. Like get local food, take care of yourself. Don't need doctors. Don't need processed foods. Does that make sense? Just it's just
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, I think you're onto something else there too, because like you said, there's not a lot of individuals that will take personal responsibility. But I think the powers that be in some way understand that there are, and maybe targeting them with some misinformation. And one example you were just talking about was with the pharaohs, and my mind instantly went to this vegan propaganda piece about the gladiators eating grains and being so strong and presented as this was something good for them, when in reality they were the peasants who were just put into the death arena and fed this because it was so cheap, and maybe even inflicting harm upon them.
well, yeah, absolutely, and they didn't care, obviously, about their long-term health, and actually, I researched this a bit because I made a YouTube documentary debunking the Game Changers documentary. So I put that out. It was just a little side project. It wasn't, like, really well done or anything, but it was good enough. Another thing I learned about that is that they actually wanted to fatten up the gladiators because they wanted blood and they wanted to fight. And you need to have fat to protect those organs. If they just got a knife wound and all of a sudden they're dead, that's not very fun. So they kind of wanted them big and beefy and fat and just it would put on a better show.
So speaking of your documentary, not that one in specific, but how many episodes in this docuseries have you done so far, food lies?
Well, yeah, we have episode 1 done and part of 2 and 6. It's a 6-part series, and none of them have been released. We just started working with the production company finally. We just started with them last week, actually, and so that's huge news for us. We've been trying to do it on our own for so long. I've been doing it for 8 years, and we actually did the first 4 years and kind of threw it away and started over and made it much higher quality and much better because we've zoomed out and like we've been talking about, like we don't need to make this like, oh, this is a carnivore documentary or a keto documentary. It's not that. It's just the ultimate documentary that or series that tells people what food is all about. Like, what is the truth about it? Not dogmatic at all. Like, we want to be undebunkable, right? And there's a guy called Lane Norton that's out there, and he's a nutrition PhD, and we're sort of frenemies. We're actually friends now, but he's one of the guys that's just kind of like calories in, calories out, and he has his whole shtick. And so that we were like, how do we make something that he can't debunk? And so that's was guiding us along, it's just like that's what we want to make. It's something that even the other side of things can't argue with. And then we just got him in it. We're like, let's just get Lane in it. And then that would be even better. And he actually was saying a lot of the stuff that makes sense and that I believe in, and we were, I told him sort of my thesis. He's like, love it. Okay, let's do it. And he, was talking about the same thesis that we're talking about.
Really? That's
Yeah.
interesting. But the micros and macros communities, just I couldn't help but think that this was going to be a split forever between the carnivore and the keto and the different zealots in each and every individual area. The trailer for that documentary is on your Instagram at Food Lies. I'm sure you have it on a website as well, but people should check that out because this will be a fascinating docuseries. It'll definitely be educational. I mean, from what I know about your pages and about your message so far, it will be actual good solid information for anybody and everybody in any of those categories that just wants some understanding. So check that out if you haven't. And when you are talking to different individuals who might be specialized in these areas, are you trying to bring all of them into this? So are you reaching out to the keto guys and to the carnivore guys just as much as the macro, micros, calorie in, calorie out people?
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what my podcast has been. Peak Human, I have a few hundred episodes and just started up again. I've been doing it for 7 years now, so I take some breaks. But I want to hear from everyone, and because I don't want to be wrong. Again, how am I not going to be debunked? As if we're not wrong. And so many camps are wrong. Vegan is wrong, certainly. The food, the government ideas are wrong, but there's a lot of truth in other camps, right? I don't I'm not in the government camp or the vegan camp. I think those are the big false ones, but I learned something from all the different camps. There's the low carb. There's a high carb. There's a pro metabolic camp, right? And Ray Peat was kind of their follower or their leader, who actually passed away a couple years ago. But he was into a lot of good stuff. He was big into like why seed oils are bad, and he's big into animal foods and saturated fat being healthy and organ meats and all this stuff. Did
Did
you
you
ever?
get to speak to him?
I did not. No, he couldn't speak well in the last years of his life, so wouldn't have been a great interview. But I know some people who interviewed him, and you can try to find some
I
interviews with him.
Yeah, I follow one of the pages that puts out his message a lot, and I mean, for all of the information out there that's easy to understand, some of his was very confusing to me, especially when I first found it. When he was, I mean, sugar's not the evil.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, that it's super interesting to me because when I first heard that stuff, it was over 5 years ago, and it kind of triggered me because I started off in the sugar is the devil camp. Right? So that's what I'm saying. I did zoom out. I was wrong, right? So I don't believe sugar's the devil. I did say that sugar, flour, oil are the worst things about food, and they're right. It's added sugar, refined grains, seed oils. Like it's not good, but it's also glucose and fructose, and this is what your body just uses for energy. And we've eaten it for all of history. Right. This is what I'm saying, where I didn't want to be wrong, looking at all these different cultures, what a different diet, they have all different diets. How is that possible? Well, it's because if you're eating whole food, natural versions of carbs, you can regulate the amount you're eating properly. You're properly satiated. People are eating traditionally. You're getting, your protein from the animal sources, and you're having your whole food carbs or even some honey or, whatever natural sugars we had, maple syrup. This is totally fine for thousands and thousands of years. Right. So I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this Ray Peat thing. And over the years, I learned about it more. I started interviewing people in his community, and yeah, I completely changed my mind, and I get it now. So like I don't want to have this cognitive dissonance. A lot of people have the cognitive dissonance, like especially the carnivores that are still holding on to this. It's like they're still saying that it's like, oh, vegetables are toxic and all fruit is toxic, all this stuff. I'm like, no. If you're an average American, a lot of these added sugars and stuff like that could be causing problems, yes, but that doesn't mean they're inherently bad. So yes, I eat for 4 years now. I've been eating a lot of different carb sources, and I feel great. I didn't gain weight. I'm doing great. I'm sleeping better actually. I think if you go too low carb for too long, it could mess with your cortisol levels. It could mess with your sleep. It could mess with your body temperature, even like cold hands and feet. Some people, I was getting like cold hands and feet, and that's just a sign of your metabolism isn't just working that well, right? Yes, you can lose weight going low carb, and I think it's still a good way. Maybe it's a jump start for people to kind of shake up their diet and get rid of all this stuff. But maybe you don't need to do it forever because it could be kind of lowering your metabolism too much. You don't want to just be in the state. I actually knew someone that was keto for many, many years, and they could barely eat anything. They were eating like 1,200 calories a day. And if they ate more than that, they kind of gained weight. So they're just like a lot of people just force themselves to eat less and less. And I think that's because you're lowering your metabolism less and less, right? And they were always cold. Surprise, surprise, always cold, right? So you don't want to just suppress all that stuff forever. So yeah, I learned a lot about these different diets. They call it pro-metabolic or bioenergetic, and it kind of makes more sense. It's like raise your body temperature, have a higher metabolism. You don't want to be stuck in this 1,200 calorie mode. You want to be able to eat abundantly. There's actually some figures from back in the early 1900s that Americans were eating like 3,000 calories a day. And we were all super thin. I mean, obviously, we're more active, right? We were like working more manual labor jobs, but No one was fat. You should be able to handle a lot of food. So yeah, but it's because they're whole food, right? It's natural. It's the traditionally processed versions of those foods.
Yeah, I experienced this firsthand. Training jujitsu on carnivore diet in the beginning is pretty good. After an extended period on carnivore diet, your energy levels might seem normal to you, but once you start reintroducing good, solid, well-rounded carbs and the things that, are sustainable and healthy, it's night and day. It really was for me. I was never experiencing the cold in the extremities or anything else like that, but once I did start getting back to balance and eating a little bit more, I felt like a different human altogether. With that said, I've had several different encampments come on the podcast and introduce things to me as well. And a couple that were really fascinating were the raw meat eaters and the raw only. So I'm sure you've had these interactions and interviews. And what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it all makes sense to me. So raw meat, well, okay, we became human because we started cooking meat. So I'll go back to when we invented fire, and that's actually when our brains started getting bigger and really exploded. And this is all in episode 1 of Food Laws. And yeah, I get their arguments, and I think it's people who benefit from it are people who need to lose a lot of weight. It's actually a great way to just eat less, right? It's your body has to digest that raw meat. I mean, it's actually easily digestible, but you're not getting all the calories and nutrients you could from it. Some say you're getting more nutrients. It's there's sort of like a it's hard to explain. There's types of nutrients and calories nuance there of like what you can get, but basically cooking food helped us get more access to calories and nutrients. So if you're a standard American and you need to lose weight or having all these conditions, I think that could help a lot of people and you would lose weight the fastest. Raw vegans, they're underweight, right? If you eat raw, it's because our bodies and our digestive systems are adapted and basically around today, like we've developed into the humans we are today because of cooked food. And that's what we need. And so if you're eating raw foods, whether it be meat or plants, for like a high amount for too long, you will become underweight, right? And you can have other things. But I do think, yeah, some of the raw meat is perfectly great and you can get some benefits and people feel good. And I've heard a lot of good stories, people I know in Austin even. And yeah, no, I get it. I get it. But it's just you can't go overboard too, right? Basically, you're getting the benefits because it's a form of restriction. There is some calorie story here, right? It's not like I'm saying calories don't matter. I'm saying there's a difference between nutrient calories and energy calories, and yeah, eating raw is a way to reduce your overall calorie load.
Do you yourself prioritize or consume raw milk, raw eggs, or anything regularly?
Yes. So I do have raw milk. We have it. It shows up every week at the Sapien Center, and I get it there. I do like to do raw egg yolks. So I cook the whites, but keep the yolks raw. So the easy ways you can do over easy eggs, or you could even separate them beforehand and have completely raw yolks and then cook the whites. And it's just better for you to digest them. And there's this whole biotin thing. There's this whole thing there. And then, yeah, I eat some raw fish sometimes. And yeah, I try to keep my steaks pretty rare in the middle because I do think yeah, there's some benefit to all that.
So I should be cooking the egg white.
Yes. Yes. So there's like this avidin and biotin ratio, and I forget the exact details, but the raw egg whites over time are not great for you.
Really?
And
I've been drinking like 6 a day every day for at least a year, I guess, and it's just so
I
convenient. I'm like, "Ah," to chug them
Yeah,
down.
yeah. No,
I
I don't
never
think
really
there's
thought
a
about it.
big problem with it. Look into it a little bit.
I
All
will.
this stuff, it's like, okay, well, we're talking about 1% difference maybe, but like you're doing all these healthy habits, and it's sure it's fine, but just look into it, and there's something to do with the avidin and biotin, and I think it's better if you definitely eat the yolks raw, and I think it's just a little better to cook the whites.
What's interesting is before I started the raw, we'd literally fry up eggs and just have a runny yolk. So that's the way I preferred it before. And then I don't even know what it was, why I did it the first day. I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna crack these eggs and drink them down. And it's like, oh
It's
man, this is
handy.
super
It's
convenient.
handy, but if you can separate them, what's really good is you separate them and then you lightly cook the whites in some salt and pepper, and it's kind of like a scrambled whites, and then you add back the yolks on top, and it's like a dressing, and it's delicious, and it's really the best way you can eat them nutrient wise.
Yeah, people have asked me, "Oh, how do you do that raw thing?" I'm like, Well, those yolks are pretty delicious. I don't you have to try it to understand." So, going forward, you've got the docuseries. What is the Sapien Center? Let's cover that real quick.
Yeah, it's a physical location. I kind of wanted to have like a hub for health in Austin and for myself and for my businesses and whatever, and just to bring people together. I think I have a overarching principle or framework that's sapien. Okay, and the idea is you can't cheat nature. I don't think you can cheat nature in the pillars of being human, and that what all the problems in society are from going away from nature. Okay, so we've talked about that with processed foods. It's very obvious that's going away from nature, right? And to get back to health, you go back to whole foods, which is aligning to nature, right? And I think every problem in society can kind of be traced back to that mismatch of how humans are meant to live and how we're living now. And this is a concept put forth by Daniel Lieberman. He wrote a book, I think it was The Story of the Human Body or something like that. And he called it the mismatch diseases, right? And it's just all the chronic disease is because we have these ancient bodies that expect a certain thing. And if you don't do that, you get the chronic diseases. And I can extend that to anything though, beyond just the food, the diet and lifestyle, because that makes sense with movement too, right? It's just obvious if you're sedentary, that's not how humans ever lived. So you're going to have problems because of that. So, but anything like loneliness, depression, anxiety, suicide, right? That is a mismatch disease too. That is a mismatch of how we were living for all of history in tribes, even nowadays, the blue zones, right? It's kind of like a plant-based bogus idea, but there's a lot of truth to it. Is these people are still, well, they're eating whole foods. They actually are eating a lot of animal foods, but they have close communities, connection, purpose. They're living long into old age because they still have their communities, right? They're not stuck in a nursing home. The grandparents are still active in the lives of their family. They're gardening. They're living in the same homes as their kids and their grandchildren. So if you have fake social media relationships, even if they are real, I have friends via social media, but it's not like I'm calling them if I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? So it's like you can have these relationships, whether they're fake or not. That's not real what humans need, right? What humans need are those real relationships, seeing people in their daily lives. So again, I think you can have like suicide is the ultimate form of loneliness, right? And that didn't exist. I looked into it a bit, and throughout history, and even into modern tribes, it really doesn't exist. Any of this depression, suicide, anxiety doesn't really exist. Of course, yeah, if something happened, you lost a loved one, you're sad for an appropriate amount of time, but there's no like chronic versions of all this stuff. Yeah. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, you know what? One of the things that parallels that in nature is when you have a dog that's almost facing all kinds of any kind of different issue, the easiest way to get them back into check, so to speak, or into natural behavior is to throw them into a healthy pack. And it just sorts out all kinds of things. So yes, community I understand is beneficial, it's medicinal, it's necessary. And it's kind of funny to me how much of biohacking in the entire genre of biohacking is actually just a return to ancestral living in one way or another. So
Uh,
good on you.
Yeah, no, that's what Sapien Center is about. Yeah, it's bringing people together in real life, and yeah, even biohacking. I do think that I call it ancestral hacking. I don't really like biohacking because I realize that all the good things about biohacking are just kind of mimicking our ancient environments or trying to bring us closer to how we are as humans, or just fill in those gaps, that mismatch of like, all right, well, you're not getting this, or you're getting too much blue light, but we'll have the blue light blocking glasses, right? So that it is an ancestral hack.
Yeah. So are you actually engaging any of the biohacking activities as a group, or are you individually? Are you doing the ice baths? Are you doing hot cold therapies and grounding in the mornings, or are you hacking that in some way as well?
Yeah, no, I doing that, definitely. At Sapien Center, we have an outdoor gym, so I do my workouts with no shirt on, no shoes, sometimes in the sun. Sometimes I just get sun, during the midday separately. But, cold plunge, I don't do it too much. I don't think cold plunge is necessary, like, every day. I think some people overdo it. I think it's a little stressful on people's body, and I think some new science is coming out to show that, especially for women. I do sauna pretty much every day. Love that, and that's proven out with all the Nordic populations, right? Scandinavian countries, very proven to be healthy. And I think it's just good for yeah, just sweating it out. It's kind of a detox. I kind of looked into this a little bit. People are like, "Oh, it's detox, detox, detox." I'm like, yeah, sweating is a detox, but people's like the science is like, "Hey, well, your liver is what detoxes you." But then I kind of understood it differently. Correct, your liver does a lot of the detox, but if you're getting a lot of these modern toxins are everywhere, right? All these plastics, all these different things. Sweating is basically just helping your liver, right? So it's like your liver's already overloaded, and if you can sweat things out, then it actually is helping your liver not have to do so much heavy lifting. So sauna's great. Yeah, all this stuff. I do it. I just try not to get overwhelmed or make it like a chore for me to do all the biohacking stuff. I don't like a lot of gadgets, but I respect them or I can like use them appropriately or encourage other people. If you're really not sleeping well, then yes, you can get some sort of Aura ring and whatever type of device, learn about what's helping or hurting you, and then not use it anymore and not be relying on it, not be stressed out. Like, oh man, like look at my sleep score is so bad. And then your whole day's ruined because you think you slept bad. Like that's not good. I just wake up and I don't ever look at some sort of sleep score and I just charge through the day and I'm not, yeah, I'm not held back. I'm not hindered by some number.
Fortunately, I found that I did the exact thing you're suggesting right now. I think I had a Whoop for 6 months, and I learned everything I needed to know. Found out how in check I was, and then I went, oh, I don't need to wear this anymore. I don't need to, especially fret over some piece of device that's going to give me information I don't want to see every now and then. It's just weird. Cool, man. Well, I guess people need to go to your Instagram Food Lies. We need to watch this docuseries, obviously, as soon as it's available. Your podcast, Peak Human, people listen to that. If they're in Austin, can people visit Sapien Center?
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of events and yeah, you just go on the Instagram or the website, sapienscenter.com and see what's going on.
And probably this time of year in Austin, you're probably sweating out a lot, regardless of whether or not you're making it into the sauna.
Yeah, yeah, I can handle it. You know what? The best way to fight heat is more heat.
Yeah. Yeah,
Doing
yeah, yeah.
sauna every day in the summer makes summer not feel bad at all to me.
I was just reading about a tribe that in the most extreme conditions, actually, what they do is they drink hot tea and they sit around and tell stories and they kind of engage the heat. They don't have any air conditioning. They don't have any, and some of the healthiest people in the world. So, where else can we follow you, and what should we be looking for in the near future from you?
Yeah, just food lies. I'm on the major social media of YouTube, Instagram, X, and Facebook. If you search food lies, and yeah, I'm thinking what's next. I'm trying to yeah, just get food lies out for sure. I'm just thinking about some things that will actually make a difference and help people. Like, is it an app? Is it, a program? Like, what is it? Like, maybe it's just continuing the podcast and just doing my things. But yeah, I have some ideas.
Well, I personally am very grateful for you. I'm grateful for your message, and I'm grateful I found you when I did, because you definitely served me well. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us today and share. And I appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to the series.
Awesome. Well, it's gonna be a little bit, but yeah, now we're in good hands with this production company, and we're going big. We're trying to get this thing on Netflix, get like a A-list celebrity involved. Like we're doing all the tricks to make it go mainstream and big.
Awesome. Well, next time I'm in Austin as well, I'll look you up.
Absolutely. Come on by.
Looking forward to it, brother. Thanks again for joining us. You guys
All
have a
right.
great
Thanks,
day.
Beth. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.